Welcome to our channel. Hi there, my name is Ranjan. I am a full stack DevOps engineer with 11.5 years of experience working in IT. I am also a 4.5 star rated Udemy instructor teaching more than 72,000 students worldwide. On this channel, my goal is to make you learn and grow by sharing my experience. So if you like my work, then do like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe this channel for more such awesome videos in future. So let's get started. Thank you.
Okay, so we saw that how different microservices interact with each other internally, and each microservice has its own database with which it interact to get the database data related to that microservice. And if that data is connected to another microservice, then a call is made to another microservice and that data is fetched and a combined data is sent back to some other microservice which responds back to the end consumer. So we now need to find out what if there are any free or microservice which we can use. So this is a website which provides lot of free, or you can say fake, microservice which we can call. And in this website we basically can go down and see it provides data for posts. If I click here, you get all the posts. Similarly, it provides data for comments. Different comments are there, and there are different albums. So there are many API endpoints which are provided. So this is one server, one microservice which is providing this many endpoints. Similarly, there's another company or another microservice which provides data. When I pass the details of a city, it provides me all the information related to the latitude longitude of that city. So let's say if I type here Delhi, then it will give me the latitude longitude of the values of Delhi, and it will say which country, which continent it belongs to. So on internet there are many RESTful microservice or RESTful web service available free to do a lot of things. Similarly, this is another one which is free. You can call this one to get list of users. It's a fake data it will provide you. So let's see how we can consume this microservice, all the posts from our Spring Boot application by the help of REST template. So this is my Spring Boot application which I already have, and from this Spring Boot application I am going to make calls to the another microservice. So let me create another controller. So I can create my own controller. So I will say post controller, and then I can just go ahead and annotate it with the normal things, like I can make it as @rest controller, and then I can say @request mapping normal. Now I'm making my application as a service to the end customer. So I will say here, let's say API/v1, always give the version, and then I will say here public. For now I will just say void. Let's say void get all posts. Similarly, I will create few more methods. I will say create post. I will say update post. I will say public void delete post. Just for fun, we have created 4 methods now. So now let's also create our service layer. So these are our net. So this is our controller layer. We have not done so far. We have just told that we want to create some posts. We want to get some posts. Now what we will do is, from here we want to return some data which will have post, but also it will have comments. So let's go back. So in this server only we will call two microservices. One is post, and then what we can do is what we will do is, if we pass the user ID, let's say ID 1, so we'll get the details of the user also. So what we want is, yeah, let's do this. So what I want to first fetch all the users, and then for each user, let's say I will first fetch all the user, and then for each user I will fetch the detail, but for each user I will also try to fetch the posts. So let's see, posts slash users slash ID. If I give the ID, it doesn't give me that, but if I say slash users, what I want to do is get me all the posts for this particular user. So you see, now I have all the posts for this particular user. See, all the posts for this particular user. If I do, see, user ID 111, if I do get me all the posts for user number 3, so I will get all the posts for user number 3, which was created by user 3. So let's do one thing. From our application, we will first we want to get all the posts created by all users, and then all the posts created by one user. So let's say get all posts by, so for now let's say user ID. So let's see how we will do this. So let's make it as get mapping. Now, because we want to get all the posts for that user ID, so we have to form this kind of URL. We need the user ID. So what we will do, in the URL, we will say, we will form a URL, posts, all posts for user. I will say this particular user. I will pass the ID, user ID. Now we will get the user ID in our path variable. So let's store it, path variable, and then we'll get the user ID as a long user ID. This is good. So we will say, okay, we got the user ID, but we don't have the post with us. We don't have a database where we are storing the post and we are storing a user ID. We don't have that. It is available here, provided by another service. So let's see how we can call it. So for that, we first need to configure some things. So let's go to our property file. Let's see, this is our dev profile. This is fine. If we go to the property file, let me configure some property. Let's say I'll create a property called external API URL. So I will put this as, so I will take the base URL and I will put it here like this. Okay, good. But now I basically want to make API calls. So we don't want to make calls from the controller layer. What we will do, we will basically we will create our service layer. So I will go to here and I will say post service, which will be an interface. Similarly, I will let me create a method here. For now, I'll just create one method like this. So this is the long it will take. And I will create a service IMPL class also, which will implement post service IMPL class. This will implements post service. Okay, good. Now we have to implement this because this is a service method, service layer. So we will say address service. Good. Now from here we need to make API call. Okay, good. But then how do we make API call? For that, as you remember, I told we have to use something called as REST template. Okay, we then REST template is automatically provided if you have Spring Boot dependencies in your project. So we already have, so that is fine. We don't have to do anything, but we need to do some configuration. Let's do some configuration. Let's create a configuration file called post configuration. I will just give it same name. Post configuration. So here I need to annotate it with a configuration annotation, and now I will define a bean here. The REST template is not a singleton bean. So here we can do like this: REST template equal to new REST template, and then start calling the methods from it. REST template dot, I can do get for object, get for post for, I can do all this. Post for entity. Similarly, put method I can call. Then I can say delete method. But this is not a good way to do this, because if I need this object in another class, then I have to create it again. So this is not a singleton object, but it is a prototype bean. It's not a singleton bean, but it's a prototype bean. So better we create a singleton bean for it. That's why we created this configuration class. And any bean which is singleton, at any bean which is prototype bean, if we want to make it as a singleton bean, we can create a class with address configuration and put that bean here. So let's see how we can do that. So I will say public, I will return REST template instance from here, which will be now the singleton instance, and I will say REST template, the method name, and here I will pass the REST template builder. So this is REST template builder. REST template builder I will pass here, and now from here I will do return. I can say builder dot build method I will do. So it will create a singleton bean, but I have to annotate it with address bean annotation. Once I do that, then with this name I can go ahead and start injecting this bean as by auto wire in my service layer. So let's go ahead and do that. This is my service layer. So I will say private REST template, and now I will say auto wired. So now automatically the memory will be created here as a singleton bean, and it will be assigned to this particular object. So this is good. But now we have to make call. How do we make the call? So let's see how we can do that. So we know that there are different methods with which we can make calls. So let's first, because this is a get method, because we are able to hit it from the browser. We can also take this and hit it from our Postman. If I go to Postman and I just say put, it's a get method, I can do send. So I will get the same data back. So this is good so far. But now what we want is just, we want to get the data and print it. So let's see if it is working. So what I will do here, in my get all posts, let's do one thing. Let's first start with a very simple one. I will say another method here, not by user ID, just get all posts. Very simple. No parameter, nothing. But of course we have to define it in our interface. Where is our interface? In the service, we have the post interface. So I will define another abstract method here, and then I have an implementation class where I will use it. So what if I want to do REST template? Just I will do REST template dot, and then I will say I want to get all the posts. So I will say REST template dot get. There are many methods to do different operations. So I want to do a get operation. So I will say get for, which means get object for object. And here you see it is an overloaded method which has different parameters. So what I will do here, I want to basically get all the data as a string. So I will say get for object, and then I have to give the URL. From where do I want to get all the posts? So let's see what is the URL to get all the posts. So I think it is this one. Now it gives me all the posts for all the users. That's fine. So I will take this URL, copy. Now I will paste it here. So this is the URL from where you will get the data. Now I want to also keep this URL, keep this data in, I want to store it. So for now I will just store what it has been written in the string format. That's it. And now I will capture it and try to print it here itself. So I will say string result. Let's just for now print it. So this is our service layer. From there we are making another API call to a remote server. And now let's in our controller use the service layer. So here I will say I'll create another method like this only. So I will say all posts, remove this, get all posts. This one not required. Remove it. Let's inject the service layer. Post service. I will say auto wire, and I will now see whatever it is returning, response or whatever it is returning, I will just store it here and say get all posts. Well, it doesn't return anything, so let's make it return. So I will say string return. Then I have to also change the interface. Let me not make it complicated. Oh, that's fine. Okay. That's for simplicity. I will make this also string. So now I have to return from here. Also, I will return. I'm printing the result, but also I will return the result from here. So far very simple. We just made an API call to an external service to get the data or all the posts data. And we are making it this same call from browser. We are making it from Postman. Now we will make the same call from our Java code or the Spring Boot class. So now this is our controller here. So let's say we return it from here also, return as a response, and I will change it to string here. Now let me start the application, then we will see what will happen. So it says there is a database issue and those kind of things. Ignore that for now. Looks like it is not allowing our application to start at all. So let me check on what profile we are running the application. On the dev profile, let me change the database to something else so that application starts. We'll see. So it says it has started the application. So let me go ahead and clean this. Now what we will do is we will go and try to hit our service, our post slash URL. So I will say localhost colon 8018, and then now we will form our URL, which is this one, API v1 posts. So we'll say 8080 slash API slash v1 slash posts. See what happened. Now our request went to our application here, and from here we made a call to service layer, and from service layer we made a call to this URL, and all the data which was returned was stored in a string type, and we returned that string type from the service layer to the controller layer, and from the controller we returned it to the browser, and you are seeing that in the output. So this is how we can make REST API calls from our Java code itself. It's not only that we can make it from the browser or a Postman, we can also make a get call, post call, put call, delete call from our application itself. So now let's stop this. I'll do one small change because the scheduler is running quite fast. So comment this line, comment the log lines. So that we don't get bothered by the print messages in the console. Okay, so now We saw how we make a call. But now there is one problem. What if I have to make more calls? I cannot keep on hard coding this URL. Of course, this URL is fine /post, but other URLs I cannot keep on hard coding. If you will remember, we kept in our Postman, we kept this URLs as safe. So now let's try to get this, because we can get a variable's value in our Java class, and this variable can have different values in different profiles, which means we can change the value. So for now, in our dev profile, we want to have this value. So I'll copy this. So in the service layer, I will create a variable called private string, and I will say base URL, API base URL. I will say post API base URL. And now, how do I get the value, this value? Because I don't need this, I need this value. So we can do that using a simple annotation called @value. Then in double quotes, put $, and then curly braces, and then put the variable key that you have created, external.api.url. So I'll paste it here. So now I will have the value in this string. So now instead of hard coding this, I will just say base URL plus the posts. So this is how I can now use it. So now let's see how can we get all the posts. I mean, we saw this to get a post, but what if I want to get a post not as a string but in a Java object? Because each of these posts is now it's a big string, but if we see it should be eventually an array of posts. I mean, many posts are being returned from here. So what I can do here, instead of string, we will change it. So let's do that. We need to create a post first. So how can we do that? So let's create a model. I would say post model. And what are the values I have to keep here? I have to keep that in mind. So I have to say, what does one post has? It has a user ID, it has an ID, it has a title, then it has a body, and the same thing repeats. So let me copy this. I wanted to show you how I can show it in a better way, but it's fine. So let me say Json beautifier so let's copy this, and here we see, as soon as I paste on the website, I get a user ID. So this is first an array of objects. So this is one object, comma, another object, and each object is a post model, post. So what I want is, in each I want a user ID field, I want the ID field, I want a title and a body. Then the same thing will repeat. So we need to create a post club model class with 4 fields. 2 having the IDs and 2 with the strings. So let's do that. So I can say private long user ID. This is the name, it should be same user ID. Then another field is private long, and then I will say ID. Then the next one is string, which is storing the data. So I will say private string title. Then the next one is body, private string body. Let's create a getter setup for it. So let's see, there are more fields coming. Here there are more fields. Something, let's say another one, there is a summary field, but we haven't declared it in our Java class. Then there will be a problem. So to avoid those kind of things, there's an annotation called, I'll show you, it's called Json ignore properties. And in there we can say unknown ignore as true, which means now if at all there is another property here and which is not present here, like a mismatch, then it will ignore those. And also let's put another one which is called Json include. In the model you can put this annotation, and here you will say include, Json include and I want only the not null value, so I will say dot Json include dot include dot not null. So now what will happen, if let's say there are some fields which are present but their values are null, that will not get populated. So only the not null values will get populated inside this. So now we have created one post model, which means it will be able to store one object, right? But we have many objects, many. So how can we do this? So for that we have to just make it as an array. So I will show you how to do that. This is our controller. So we go to the service layer, and here instead of giving this, I will say post model and then array, because this is what we are getting, array. We are getting an array, and from here also we will return the array of post model from this class. So let me create that post model array here. So we will return that. So let's see if we have imported it correctly. So in the interface also we have to change it. So I will go to the service interface. Here I will change it to post model array. And now if I come here, let's return this one, and let's see in our controller also we'll return a post model array, and that is what is also being returned here, post model array. So let me put a debugger here somewhere. Let's put a debugger here and start our application in the debug mode. Or let's say here also I can do right click debug as Spring Boot, and we will see now by debugging what will happen and understand what we have done so far. So let the application start. So now we have the application started. Let's go ahead and try to hit this. So I will go to the browser or to the Postman, doesn't matter. And when I will say, I can close this tool. Post. So now our debugger stops here. Now I will go into the next service. This is in the service layer call. So I want to go inside the service layer, get all post methods. So I will say step into. So it goes here. And now you will see my post API URL. Just hover on top of it. Its value is automatically populated. And from where it got its value? From this property file, because we have mapped this key inside our service layer, this variable, with the help of @value annotation, and in double quotes we have $curly braces, the same key, API external API URL. So it automatically populated its value. So if there are 10 key in your property file here, you can get all the keys values by creating 10 fields here and mapping them like this. So now let's see, this is now it will make an API call to slash this URL and slash post, and whatever data it will get, it will put it inside this array. So what data it will get? It will basically get this array, whole array of posts. So it will put inside that. We'll see that. Let's do that. If I go further, next line, it is making an API call, it is fetching the data, and if I hover now on the result, if I say post model, you will see it brought me many posts, and each post has a user ID and a normal post ID and a post title and post body. See, it got me all the data, 100 records. So now if I go further, this will be, now I am back in my controller layer, and it will be basically returned as a response. So let's check. So this is what we see. Exactly the same data what we used to see directly from here. But now what I want is not only this, we also want to create post. This was just getting the post. Now I want to create post. So let's see how we can do that. So we'll go back to our post model class and stop the server. So this is our post model. Let's quickly make a constructor so that we can quickly save it or create the post model object from outside. So post model default constructor. Then also we'll create another one, public post model, and here we will say we will take all the values. So we will say we'll say long user ID, then I will say string title of the post, then string post body. So this will help us create this, and inside this we will say this dot user ID is equal to the user ID, this dot title equal to title, this dot body is equal to body. So this is fine. And of course, this we can also say it's going to be sent on network, so we can say implements serializable. So now we have our model Pojo created. So now let's go and see how we can basically create a new post. So for that, we need to do something. Let's close everything first. Let's go back to our controller. So this is our controller where we have the create post. So here first we will say @ post mapping, and in here we can also say double quotes / posts. So this will be about creating a post, and we will get the data from the UI. So we will say request body, and we will say what do we get? We will get one post model from the UI. So I will say post model. Once we get this post model, we need to pass this post model to our service layer. So in the service layer also we have to create a create post method. So copy this. Let's go to the service layer. The post interface, I'll paste it like this. We don't need this annotation. And now I will go to the MPL, and here if I do hover on it, it will tell me implement the post. So I will do this. So now we have the post. Let's first see how we can create a post using our own from the postman. So this is postman. So this is one post. Let me copy this post, and then let me duplicate this. So here I will change it to first post, and then I will say change the URL to /posts, because we need to now create a post. So we have to say set some content type. So this is a post, so I will say content type equal to application /JSON. And in the body I will pass this one post object. I don't have to pass this ID of the post, it will automatically be created, but I will just pass the post ID, user ID who is creating the post, and the title and the value. So if I do a send, see I got a response that the post was created successfully 201 with a post ID of 101, which is great. So let's do that. So what I want is, after my post is created, I want to return back that post. So I will say post model is the return type. So let's see. Here we have to do two things. One thing is we have to create the post object, and another thing is we have to pass the data. So how we will do that? So let's try to do it. So we have the URL which we have to hit. That is good. We have the REST template. So now we first have to create some. For now, let's say from here we return a dummy, a null value for now. So now first we did in our Postman, we did a content type as we set this as a header. So we set a content type key, the content type key and value as application JSON. So here also we have to do something like that. We have to say HTTP headers. So take the Spring Boot one, and we will say headers equal to new HTTP headers. So this is done. So here we will set one header. I mean the first header is headers dot set. Let's look for the right method, content type. It's at the end. So here we will now set the content type. So it will be media. It's a constant, so media type dot application JSON. So this is our one header, which is like for passing data from our client to the server, like from Postman to Spring Boot. We also have to set another header, which is like for the return. So I will say headers dot set. No, this is also for accepting, but if it is more than one, it's collection, then it will accept like this. Accept. Then I will say, no man, let's use this only one. That should be good enough. So now we need to call the rest template dot post for entity method. And what it takes few parameters. Number one parameter is the URL, which we have saved it at the top, and we will append it with the /posts. This is good. Second is the data, which we want to basically post it. Otherwise, it won't work. So we need to send the data. And how is the data being sent? It is sent in the form of an HTTP entity. So let's see how it is, what it is. So here we will say HTTP entity, and then we'll say post model, then we'll say HTTP entity equal to new HTTP entity. And now we have to pass two things. One is the data object and another is the header. So we have created the header, so that is fine. So we'll say comma headers, that is good. But we have to also have the data. So this data is coming in this post model. So we will set it here. And now we will pass this HTTP entity as a second parameter of this post. So two parameters done. The third one is what is the type of response that we will get from the service. So it will be of post type. And now we will also store it. Post model, new post. Let's say that way, post. So it says it is returning required type is provided is response entity. Let's check what it is complaining. So here, okay, here it's basically returning a response entity. Good, response. Response entity of post. So basically, this is the response. So we are now trying to store that response in our new post entity. And now we will return this post entity from. If we want to do something here, we can do it. So let's say I want to Now I want to just print it here. Let's say system dot. So I want to just send the post from here. So I will say post model equal to new response entity dot get body. So I can get the body. Also I can get the status code. So see here it is returning like it's 201. When I hit this one and there's a body. Similarly, when I hit it from here also good, it will return two things. One is the code and then body. So I will get the body and return that. But we should always check whether the request was successful or not. So for that, let me create this one at the top somewhere. Null. And we will say return null. If I will say new response entity dot get status code, which is the HTTP status code equal to HTTP status code of created, then only we will know that successful, the API call went successful, and after that we will set it into our field variable, the temporary variable. Otherwise it will be only null, and we will return this post model from here. And now from here we will get that post model, so we will return it back. So it's a post model. So let's say post model equal to post service dot create post, and we will pass the post model here, which is coming from the browser, and we will say return model. So this is what we have done. So let's try to run and see if it is creating the posts or not. I'll simply run it. The server started. So let's go here, and instead of making call to this one, we'll make our call to localhost http colon localhost 8080. Now I will say post, and it will send the data, this one. Let's say I will say it for the user 2. So here we get an issue. It says /post not available, which is correct because our URL is API/v1/posts, this one on the post mapping. So we forward to give API/v1. Great. So now what we see, it went there, it created the post, and we also got the response from there, which is awesome. Similarly, you can also do an update for post. So let's quickly do an update. You can do an update, and you can also do a delete. So let's quickly do that. So if I say this, instead of this, I will say put mapping, and I will say posts. So let's do it an update post. So it will pass the same thing. In the service we go and we change this to, we create two methods here, copy, update and delete. So we say update post, and then we also say delete post. So for deleting the post, you just need a post ID. So I'll say long post ID. And for updating the post, you need the post as well. So now if I go to the service, I'll do an implement all. So in the post, we again have to do the same thing. We have to make this request. In fact, we copy all this. We only have to do a little bit of tweaking. So I will paste it here. So here we are saying that we want to basically set the post is to this one, but here there will be a separate kind of URL that we will form, because here we will pass the post ID. So the URL will become like this. So this is the post ID, and it won't be post anymore. This method, we basically want to change it, and this method we can do it in multiple ways. There is also a method called update. I mean, using the put method. So let's do that way. But there's another way also to do this. This is called more general approach, which is exchange, and there you can specify the method name. So whatever is fine, anything is fine. So let's do it with the exchange way. So I will say there's also put method, but I will not do it with the put method. I will show you how to do it with the exchange method. So exchange, it's very simple. So we call the rest template dot exchange, and then we call the base URL. This is fine. Base URL, I mean, when I say base URL, the URL plus a post. Then we have our method which we have to give. So here we need to say, so you can use this as exchange for generic, for anything. Just you have to make sure you provide the right method here. So we are using it for HTTP put, see. So here instead of post for entity, I could have used exchange, and I could have passed method here also, HTTP post. But here I'm showing you an example of doing the put in that way. So we pass the method type, then we pass the entity, and this entity has the data which needs to be updated, wrapped inside HTTP entity, which has the data plus the headers. Headers here is again application/JSON. Next is we need to pass, I want to get back the updated post, but also we need to pass the post ID here, which will update. So from where we will get, we are already getting the post model, so we can get the ID of it. So we'll say post model dot get ID, that's the post ID. So now, because it will return OK status after updating, so if everything is fine, so I will say now instead of new post, we will say updated post entity. If the post is updated, we will get the data, otherwise we will get null data back. So similarly, we can also do quickly the delete one, which is also very simple. In the delete, we don't return anything, so I will say void. So I will go and say void, and then here we'll just say rest template dot delete, and here you need to provide the option what the ID. So I will say delete, and then we will say the URL as the post UI API URL plus the base URL, which is posts, and then we need to also provide the ID, post ID, which is coming here. So then we don't need a return type, so this is fine. So this is how we can also delete the post. So let's run this program and see if it is working as expected. But before that, we have to call them from the post controller. So in the post controller, we have to call update post. Don't need this. And here I will say delete mapping. And I can say I will get the post ID, so long post ID. And now I am going to just say post service dot delete post and pass that post ID. That is it. So let's stop the server and start again and try to see if our update and delete are working or not. So let's see if the server started. It is still starting up. Let it start. Looks like the server started. So I'll go ahead to my postman, and instead of post, I will do an update, and the URL is exactly same, but I have to now pass the post ID as well, because if you see in the post update, we do need to pass the post ID. So because here in our service, we are using the post ID to know which post to be updated. See in this exchange method, this one. So we need to pass that post ID. So let's say I will say ID as 1. So let's see, when I send, it gave me 500 internal error. Let's see what happened. We got an error from the API. So it says 404. It doesn't find it. In the post service IMPM 957. Here when we try to make a call. So let's check if this post even exists, which we are trying to. So for user ID 2, let me change it to user ID 1. Let's see. So again the same issue. So let's see if we are able to get a post. So for the user ID 3, there is a post called 21. So let's see if we can delete that. So for user ID 3, post ID was 21. User ID 3, post ID 21. So this exists. So let's see. Still we get an error. And let's now see why we are getting this error. So it says here, let me go ahead and just try to hit post to see what are the posts. So I say, so here I have user ID 1 and post 1. This it should allow us to delete or update basically. So not delete. So I say user ID 1 and the ID is one. still we get the error. So let's try to debug it. So then in the debug mode, let me put a debugger here. Let's see what is the value being set here. Okay, so here we don't have the field to capture post ID. So let's create another constructor also, which will basically also store the post ID, long ID. And I can say here this dot ID equal to ID. Let's stop and start again. Because there was no constructor, so ID was not getting set properly. And as we have added JSON ignore, so it was ignoring the unknown property. So now as soon as we pass ID, it will come here, title it will come here, user ID it will come here, and it will set the values. Let's see if this works. So server has started. I will put, oh, I already have kept. So in the controller also I will put a debug point here. Let me hit user ID 1, post ID 1, update. So what happened? It did not even reach there, which is not good. So I'm saying put mapping, and this is a put mapping method is post, and still it doesn't work. So this is bit of surprising why it doesn't work. Put update localhost this one. So it should even at least stop here. So post service I built this, it doesn't work, it says, but it fails before even that. So now I want to know why it fails. It should at least stop here, and then we can verify if the data from the request is coming or not. It's HTTP localhost 8080 API v1 posts, and then we give user ID is this and this. So now we got a debug point here. Let's see the value is populated or not. So if I hover on the post, I see it is populating the value. So now I have to go inside the service call. So I will click here, like I want to go there. Now I'm inside the update method of the service layer. So I want to debug here and see what is the problem. So far we got our value. So I can double click and inspect, evaluate. All the values are as expected. So go further, and I try to go there, and it gives an exception. Throws an exception. The reason is HTTP put mapping. We gave HTTP put mapping. We gave the entity as well. we need to see. Maybe we are doing it in a slightly wrong way. So let's do it in a different way. So we don't need this one basically. What we'll do, we'll remove this. And then in our service layer or the controller layer, we'll also pass service layer will pass along post ID from there. Okay, which is fine. And now we will also have to change it in the interface, because this is how that service is expecting this in the format of URL. So I will say post on a post ID also. So now in the controller we will say slash put mapping slash post ID, and I will pass here at the path variable. Will capture this value, will capture this post ID from here. So we can also put it in the string, but that's the name are same, so it's fine. Post ID, right? Now we'll pass along that post ID all the way to service layer in the post, and then in the service layer we will use this post ID here. Post ID. So now it should work. Let's try it out. So debug mode, run it debug mode. So our URL will slightly change. Instead of passing post ID here in the put, we will pass the post ID here. And let's see if that works. In the console. So now if we go there and try to hit it, it stops here. I see the post ID value, which is 1 here, and the post model will have all the data except the ID, which is null. Now let's enter inside the service layer. Now again we get an exception here. Maybe there's something wrong with the service itself which is causing this exception, because other things apart from these things, I think our request and response looks okay. Let's quickly double verify if we have missed out anything. Yes, we do have missed out anything. We made one mistake here. We also have to pass the ID here, like this. In the double quotes. And this, let's name it as ID. It's fine if we want to name this one as post ID, so we will also name. So here it should be slash post slash p this, and make it just ID. Change this variable name to ID. So now we get the ID field here, and it makes the URL. Same we have to do for the, probably for the delete also we have to form the same URL. Here we have to say double quotes curly braces ID, which is the basically the post ID, and then we'll pass the ID field here, and from here we'll also get the ID value. So now it should work, because that is why it was not working. We were forming the URL not in a correct way. So this should be the URL. And that's the reason it was also saying 404 not able to find. So now let's check by hitting it again. See, now it's great. It does update it. So now let's go ahead and try to delete it. So I will go ahead and delete it. For delete, there is no body required. So I'll just click this, and it says method not allowed. What did we do wrong? User ID this method API / post / okay, let's check. Have we done something different in our controller? Oh, wait, yeah. For the delete, we did not give any mapping, so definitely it will complain. So we have to copy the same mapping because we want to give the same type of URL. That's what we follow in the RESTful URL or RESTful web service. Always try to keep the URLs as same. See, all our URLs are same. So if I restart the server and now try to delete, then I should be able to delete the post with that post ID. Now it has started. Let's go ahead and try to delete this post, which is having an ID of 1. And again, it gives us an issue. It says not found. Let's see if we did the same mistake again. So it is not able to find that. So this is our delete mapping / posts with post ID, and we are passing that post ID to the service layer. In the service layer, we are getting that ID, and we are basically making a call like this to delete the post. So what is that we are doing wrong here? Let's try to see. This should have worked ideally, but why doesn't it work? Let's check if we have more options from the delete. So if I say delete, it takes URL, it takes mapping value. We have passed the ID to the post to be deleted. So let's quickly check if we have made any mistake here. So this is our URL that will be formed for deleting purpose. And this is the ID value which will come from our controller layer. So let's go and check in the controller. Okay, here's the problem. Here we are not getting the data. So let's put an annotation. Let's say path variable, and then put here the post ID. Only then it will get the value and set it here. And then it will be passed to the control service, and then it will delete it. So now it should work. So it was a silly mistake. We forgot the annotation path variable. So this is what happens. So you have to closely look into it and debug and see if the flow is as expected. Then there will be some silly mistake because of which the problem would be coming, and you will be able to figure it out yourself. Otherwise, you can put in the debug mode and check if the value is getting set or not. Then also you will come to know about the issue. So let's see. Now if I run this, see, it did deleted it. Now I get a no response because I have not done anything. So this is good. So we have created, updated, deleted a post, but we have left with another point. Here we said we want all the posts for a user ID. So let's see how we can do that. In the interface we have it. We have also the user ID. So let's check the method. Here we said we want all the posts for the user, for a particular user. So now from here we basically have to we say rest template dot, we can use exchange or we can also get for object, same as this one. Let's capture this. So now we will get all the posts. So this is, by doing this we will get all the posts, which is good. But what we want to do is we want to get each and every post. I mean, for a particular user ID, we want to get the post ID. So what we will do, we will again make calls from here. Or we can do it in a very simple way. Let's run the for loop. So for, we'll use the for each loop, and then I will say colon, and I will use the result array on the right side. Use the curly braces. On the left side, I will get to one model, post model. This is the models I will get. And now from here, I want to know, basically I need to form this URL. If you remember at the start, I showed you a URL. This is the URL. So for users 3, I want the post. So I have to make this one dynamic, and the rest of the URL should be same. So let's see how we can do that. So let's copy this, and we will put it for reference purpose here. So this here we have all the posts, but now we want the post only for one particular user. So how we will do that? So again we will do rest template dot get for post, and this time we'll form the URL as post URL plus, this is a post URL, and then we have plus, which is double quote slash users, then slash, then plus, we need the user ID, and that we will get it from our controller. So I will pass the user ID, then I will say plus double quote slash posts. So let's see what happens. Yeah, and now this will return me the post for different post. It will return me the post array for that user. So I can basically now, I will get multiple posts for that user. So for every post that I got, I will take a user ID and try to get the post for that user ID. So this is a slightly complex example. Let's take a better example. Let's say I want to get all the comments under this post. So I'll say comments slash posts slash one. It doesn't give me that. That means, let's say, maybe it's comments under first. No. So we'll say like this. All comments under post this one. So post ID 1, post ID 1, so this is actually yes. So this is what we are getting are the comments. You see? So now what we will do, we already have all the posts. So we will iterate on each post and get all the comments of that post. So instead of doing get, so we make it get comments, get all comments for a post. For the post, let's say this way. For one post, we want to get all the comments. Then we have to pass the post ID here. And then we will have to form a URL like this. You can do a lot of things. I'm just showing one possibility. But now we have another problem that we have to create the post object as well. So, sorry, we have to create the comments class. Otherwise, how I will store the comments? So what I can do, I can for now temporarily store the. Let's go ahead and create the comment class very quickly. So in the comment class, I have the post ID, the user ID, name, email, and the comment. So I will say models class comment model. I will say, and quickly write down. I will say increments serializable, and then I will copy paste the two annotations which we have. These two. So full annotations, and then I'm going to create private. Let's check the post ID with the long. So it's a private long post ID. Then I have long ID, private long ID, name, email, body, private string name. Then we have email. Then we have the body of the post, body of the comment. So private string. Let's create the getter setter quickly. Done. Now we go here and we say we don't need a for loop anymore because we are getting the post template. Sorry, the comment. So the post ID here. So we'll just say for this post ID, we need to form the URL. So slash post slash, and then we'll pass the comment ID. Wait, We'll pass a post ID. There's a post ID. In all posts, for the first post, get all comments. So there's a comments. COMMENTS comments. Now we'll say comment model. Comment model. And we will also get that back here. And this is what we will return. Result. We have to change it here as well in the service. We also have to change the name. And this will be post ID. For one particular post, we will get all the comments. So from the controller, we will also change the name of the method here. So you can do all kinds of permutation, combination. You can build a whole application by calling multiple APIs of different layers. So I will say return post service dot get all comments for post ID. So I will pass this post ID here, here, and here. And whatever is returned, I will return back. But this is not good. So what we said? We said this. We need for a particular post, I need all comments. That's how you read it. For many posts, I need one post, and in that one post, I need all comments. So this is terms of comment model. So let's restart the server and see if this endpoint is also working. So let's see. We'll copy this and change the post ID from the URL. You can see. So this is our delete request. Let me make it a get request. So here I will see just 2. So we got all the comments for post ID 2. Similarly, I can say post ID 4. We'll go again post all the comments for post ID 4. So this is how you can keep on building services on top of it. And you can interact with multiple services. You can interact with the database also from here. No one is stopping you. You can do some validation here. Everything is allowed. I just purely showed how to do CRUD operations using by calling another service from the Spring Boot. That's what we also discussed at the start. This is what we are doing. We are making a third from here. We are making a third party call. All right. Now that we have created our REST template and called 4 services like doing get operation, update operation, post create operation, and delete operation, we should also understand that the service which we are calling from here which is this service. Let's go to the configuration file. This service can be also down, or sometimes this service might take long time to respond. In that case, we cannot wait in our service layer. We cannot wait here for infinite time. We cannot wait for infinite time. So there it becomes very important to add some kind of timeout condition or timeout value, so that after waiting certain seconds or milliseconds, if we don't get response from this, then we terminate that request. So that kind of configuration we can do very easily in our configuration file where we are configuring our REST template. So here we have our REST template, and we had just called the REST template builder. But now what we will do, we will also set two more properties which are about the connection timeout and the read timeout. So you just have to do builder dot, we can also do it here, builder dot set, see, connection timeout and read timeout. So let's say let's set the connection timeout. We can set it like duration, and then we can say, let me take this one, dot, and I can say duration of, not hours, but I can set duration of, let's say, seconds, and I can say for how many seconds we should wait. So or the connection should time out after how many seconds, waiting for how many seconds. So I can say maybe 100 seconds, or it will be also too much, then I say 60 seconds. If we don't get a response within 60 seconds, then the connection should time out. Similarly, if we also should set the read timeout. Read timeout is something like, if we have initiated a request and there is a very big response on the data which is coming, and it takes a lot of time for the data to come over the network, then we should give some kind of read timeout. So I will say duration of, and then here I can also put, let's say, 60 seconds. So I can say duration of here seconds. So 60 seconds. So this is, we are setting the read timeout and connection timeout. And in the microservice world, where one service is calling to another service, it is very important to have some kind of timeout set. Otherwise, one service is waiting on the other service for a long time until the other service has timed out. So that is why it is very important for the client who is calling the another microservice to already have some kind of timeout expectations. So here connection timeout is like, while from our REST template, when we are making a call connection to this particular service and it is taking long time to connect, then we have said don't wait more than 60 seconds. And the read timeout is, once we have connected to this service from our REST template, well, for getting the data, let's say this service internally is making a database call and the database call is taking time. So we cannot wait for a long time after connection. So we will not wait more than 60 seconds for read timeout also. So read timeout is like after connection, waiting for that much time and then timing out, and connection timeout is trying for connection to this service, and within that time, if the connection is not established, then timing out. So that you can configure here. And this is very important in the microservice world. Every service should have some kind of timeouts, read timeouts and connection timeout.